Today's Gospel is from John 2, verses 13 to 22. Since the Passover of the Jews was near, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. He found in the temple area those who sold oxen, sheep, and doves, as well as the money changers seated there. He made a whip out of cords and drove them all out of the temple area with their sheep and oxen, and spilled the coins of the table money changers, and overturned their tables. And to those who sold doves he said, "Take these out of here, and stop making my Father's house a marketplace." His disciples recalled the words of Scripture, "Zeal for your house will consume me." At this the Jews answered and said to him, "What sign can you show us for doing this?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews said, "This temple has been under construction for 46 years, and you will raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking about the temple of his body. Therefore, when he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they came to believe the Scripture and the words Jesus had spoken. This is the word of the Lord. The temple was sacred. The temple was also Jesus' body. We know the temple today is the mystical body of Jesus. It was raised from the dead. The temple is the divine organism, the church, the body of Jesus. It is eternal and will last until the end of time. The church is sacred, the church is holy. Jesus knew that the merchants around the temple did not think that the temple was holy, and he drove them away. Jesus made a whip and drove them all out of the temple area. To know the temple, it is important to know the Catholic faith in its purity. The church is holy and has replaced the old covenant of Moses with the new covenant in the living temple of Jesus and his church. Satan knows this too, so he tries different ways to change the teachings of the church, so that we will lose the purity of our one true faith and mix it for other lesser temples. Next week the American bishops will meet in Baltimore to discuss evangelization, the bringing of people to the one true temple, outside of which there is no salvation, and in which all people need to enter to go to heaven and avoid hell. There are some American bishops who are unable to say publicly that Judaism is not a path of salvation, and that Jews in general, barring those in invincible ignorance, need Catholic faith and the baptism of water for salvation. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, USCCB, has published this year a document for Catholic youngsters, for Catholic young people in high school. It's called Doctrinal Elements of a Curriculum Framework for the Development of Catechetical Materials for Young People of High School Age. In this document, on the last chapter, the chapter on ecumenical and interreligious dialogue, it is written, "Those who do not know Christ but who still strive to know and live in truth and holiness can be saved." I repeat, those who do not know Christ but who still strive to know and live in truth and holiness can be saved. This needs to be qualified out, otherwise it is indifferentism, since it is suggesting that non-Catholics are saved in their religions, implicitly and in general, by Jesus Christ and the Church, and so they do not have to convert. Nowhere in this document is it said that non-Catholics need Catholic faith and the baptism of water for salvation. There is no mention of Ad Gentes 7 and Lumen Gentium 14, stating that all people need to enter the Catholic Church through Catholic faith and the baptism of water, this being part of the missionary activity and proclamation of the Catholic Church. This document was developed by the Committee on Evangelization and Catechesis of the USCCB. It was approved by the full body of US Catholic bishops at its November 2007 General Meeting, and was authorized for publication by the General Secretary of the USCCB. There is a chapter, Proclamation and Dialogue. It states, "Those who through no fault of their own do not know the gospel of Christ or his church, but who nevertheless seek God with a sincere heart and, moved by grace, try in their actions to do His will as they know it through the dictates of their conscience, those too may achieve salvation. Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 847, Lumen Gentium, number 16. The USCCB wants young American Catholics to proclaim, as they are already doing, that non-Catholics are saved in their religion. It is not said here that they need to enter the church to go to heaven, so it encourages syncretism in proclamation. Nowhere in any of these documents it is stated that Judaism and Islam are not paths to salvation, and their members need Catholic faith and the baptism of water to be saved. So it's not giving a balanced picture of the teaching of the Church. It's not the correct picture on evangelization. It's suggesting that the exceptional way is the normal, ordinary way of salvation. And so young people would think that the Jews and non-Muslims and non-Catholics would not have to convert. So here is an example of the purity of the faith being lost. People coming in search of the temple and being led elsewhere. The American apologist Robert Sanjanis has on his website Catholics Apologetics International asked the USCCB, his own bishop in his diocese, and Catholics United for the Faith to answer the following questions. They have not. They have missed the chance at proclamation of the faith. Sanjanis writes, in order to clarify where they stand, Bishop Rhodes, the USCCB and its catechism, as well as the CUF, Catholics United for the Faith, should state specifically and clearly that they believe the following. The old covenant, the Mosaic covenant, has been revoked and replaced entirely, that is superseded by the new covenant. It is not a valid covenant and it does not continue eternally. Second, the old covenant cannot save the Jews, even if the old covenant is somehow promoted as being tied to the new covenant, or tied to the Abrahamic covenant, or under the mediation of Jesus Christ, or is categorized as, quote, not being apart from Christ, unquote, or, quote, not outside of Christ, unquote. And that the Jew, barring instances of invincible ignorance, can only be judged by God, can only be saved by converting to the new covenant and forsaking any dependence on the old covenant. If they will not affirm the above statements, then my criticism of their theological stance on the Jews in the old covenant remains, and it would be my considered opinion that they are holding to or teaching erroneous beliefs that are suspect of heresy. Robert Sanjanis, on his website, titled In My Response to Bishop Rhodes Regarding the Old Covenant, February 29, 2008. The question that is not being answered by the USCCB, CUF, Scott Hahn, and many other American Catholics is, when you meet Mr. Harrisburg, a Jew in Boston, can you tell him that the Catholic Church teaches that he needs Catholic faith and the baptism of water to go to heaven and to avoid hell? This was a question brought to the attention in a message to most of the bishops this week. Jim Likud, this President Emeritus, Catholics United for the Faith, says that Father Leonard Feeney was not excommunicated for heresy. Yet he will not answer this question. Neither will Father James Massa, Director of Interreligious Affairs of the USCCB. The offices of evangelization in Kansas, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and other dioceses will not respond to questions on this issue. This is denying Jesus and the Church for marketplace values.